The state of mental health care in the developing world is pretty poor. There is a kind of powerful, almost demonic relationship between poverty and mental illness. Imagine a situation where between 80 and 90% of the potential client group is not able to reach decent help.
3 out of 4 mentally ill people live in poor countries like Ghana, where access to care is especially challenging in rural areas.
About 70% of Ghana is living in the rural areas, and conditions there are certainly quite harsh. You have schizophrenia, depression, bipolar disorders, anxiety disorders. For a whole country of 25 billion people, we have about 14 psychiatrists, and that translates to about 1 psychiatrist per 2 million people.
So, from the point of view of a mentally ill person, to be able to access effective treatment is a challenge. There's no question about that. And that's the challenge that we want to meet.
To do so, Basic Needs is pioneering a new community-based model of mental health care.
Basic Needs provides a system where there hasn't been a system before. It is low cost and sustainable on very, very scarce human resources.
Basic Needs, as an NGO, does not deliver service itself directly, but they ensure services get to the grassroots.
Those services focus not only on mental health, but also on economic and social well-being. To provide them, Basic Needs works with existing government ministries and other agencies, training doctors, nurses, and community volunteers to fill the mental health care gap.
The first thing is to identify those people who are skilled professionals, and we then have to use those professionals optimally to help us to train others. For example, in the recognition of mental illness. So to train healthcare workers, development workers, village healthcare workers. We're shifting the task that would otherwise be with a specialist onto people who are non-specialized, but who nevertheless have authority.
Basic Needs trained Sotsar Tawele, a community nurse, to diagnose and support people like schoolteacher Francis Kubila. Several years before they met, Kubila had begun to exhibit erratic and violent behavior. This led the village's traditional healer to lock him up.
His family particularly thought that he was a danger to himself and to the community, especially his wife and children.
This is a gentleman who probably has quite an important psychosis or schizophrenia. He'd been locked down in his own home. Now, when I say locked down, I mean his leg had been pinioned in a large log. A hole had been bored through the trunk. The leg had been inserted into the hole.
Then they use some nails to lock it so that the leg cannot come out. So I had to be sitting there naked like that. Defecation, eating, urine, and everything was where I was.
The log was said to have some spiritual powers to help in his healing. And that was the reason why the traditional healer had put his leg in the log.
Kubila's family left him attached to the log for 2 years.
And this is very typical of what happens to people where mental illness is ill understood.
Kubila was finally released because the community nurse's training helped him recognize what the village healer had not, that Kubila had a treatable psychosis. The nurse gave Kubila medicine that improved his condition quickly. Basic Needs then helped him find a new teaching position.
Our goal is to get people back into work.
To do that, Basic Needs has developed unique apprenticeship programs that have equipped thousands of people with the skills they need to make a living.
For example, we negotiate land from traditional chieftains, and the land is then used for training people or retraining them in agriculture. And that apprenticeship structure, which is quite common in Africa, is one of the ways in which we can really get people back into employment. It's crucial to not only your survival, but also to the reduction of stigma, which means that you get accepted back into society.
A pair of shoes, from a pair of shoes, yes? You can imagine all these ordeals you go through. I don't want to mostly remember them, but It cannot be cut off from my mind. But I got relieved when I was released. But as a family man, if I am not working, how will I be able to feed this large?
We have reached out to people in their families, in their homes, in their workplaces to say mental illness is not what you think. It is one anyone can experience, and that there are ways by which you can manage your mental illness and live a productive life.
They've been helping to demystify mental health, and that has actually helped to remove some of the barriers and discrimination.
When I started the organization, we started with a blank sheet of paper. Now, there's well over 108,000 people who have been through our program. It's a drop in the ocean, but the ocean's very big.